All right, what is up, everyone? Welcome back to the True Mets Talk podcast. This is the pre-game edition coming at you a little bit earlier than anticipated due to some scheduling conflicts, but this is the second live stream between myself and Zach surrounding Mets baseball of the day. And you all will be getting two pregame streams, one from us and one from Rob, who is doing his own pregame as well. He couldn't make it on, or else all three of us would be on the same screen at the same time. But this is how scheduling works. It's not always perfect. We do have game two today between the Mets and the Giants, as the Mets are looking to take a series, the first series of this 6-game West Coast trip that features this series against the Giants and also the next one against the Padres before coming back home and facing this very same Giants team for 3 at Citi Field. We will, I guess, keep refreshing our Twitter feeds here because Zach has made me aware that the Binghamton Rumble Ponies have not posted a lineup as of yet. So a little bit of trade deadline speculation mixed in between. It could be something, it could be nothing. We'll let you know, but their game is coming up within the hour and they have no lineup posted. So how are you, Zach? How are you?
Doing good. Getting ready for a game tonight. Hopefully, a win against Robbie Ray and a good Giants team. Robbie Ray is having himself a very nice season for the Giants, and I guess we'll see later what this lineup looks like for the Giants. But tonight on the hill, we have our ace in David Peterson. Uh, Hopefully, he'll have himself a good night and can hopefully hand the ball over to a new acquisition in Gregory Soto if he does decide, or if he is able to pitch tonight. I know traveling from the east to the west coast included with that physical he had to provide for the Mets, so it might be a bit difficult for him to show up tonight. But regardless, he did take Jeremy Hefner's number. I believe it was 65, if I'm not mistaken. So he has a jersey. He will be available whether it's tonight or tomorrow. So we will be seeing some new Mets at least as soon as tonight, more likely tomorrow. And like you said, I told you about the Binghamton Rumble Ponies not announcing their lineup. Who knows how things go down there in Double A. There's no rain in the forecast for where they're playing in Reading, PA, and the Reading Fighting Phils did announce their lineup about 2 hours ago. So something to keep an eye on, and maybe some breaking news within the hour during this pregame show. If not, hopefully something later, or it just could end up being nothing. But at this time of year, you have to stay focused and be ready for a move at any moment in time.
We're grasping to straws here, I feel like, a little bit. But you know what? How cool would that be to see another Mets trade while we are live instead of scrambling to do a live stream like yesterday when we were talking about the Gregory Soto breaking news. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. Hopefully, Gregory Soto is, I'm sure he's with the team already. A little bit of travel constraints there. Like you said, going from the east to the west coast could be a little bit of jet lag. So, from what I last heard, he should be available in uniform tonight. But if things get a little bit delayed, if the process isn't completely smooth, I think you might be looking at, at least latest tomorrow with him potentially getting some action depending on how this game goes. And as of right now, when we started this live stream, again, we are doing this 3 hours in advance, and you will get another live stream from Rob. So make sure to go check out his pregame stream alongside this one. But we do have a lineup from the New York Mets. Mendoza was very quick to get a lineup out, and the San Francisco Giants are not as quick as the Mets, as they don't have a lineup posted just yet. And I guess we can start with the lineup here because, this is a pitching matchup of two southpaws between David Peterson, like you mentioned, is at this point clearly the Mets ace, and also Robbie Ray, who is having himself a fantastic season thus far. And we know the accolades that Robbie Ray has collected over the course of his career. He is a pretty damn good pitcher and has been for quite some time. But this is your lineup for the New York Mets from 1 through 9. Brandon Nimmo leading off, playing left field. Lindor, who is heating up, as we talked about on the postgame show yesterday. Another multi-hit night for Lindor. Batting second, playing shortstop, Juan Soto. Alonso is the usual right fielder, and he's doing the same thing tonight, batting third. Pete Alonso is batting cleanup. Starling Marte gets the DHing duties in the 5 spot. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Starling Marte in the 5 spot, never have been, but you know what? There are bigger things to worry about in terms of getting the overall production instead of worrying about, one particular guy in this lineup. Hopefully, this lineup is able to replicate something a fraction of what they did last night in scoring those 8 runs, which just felt so refreshing for them to go out there and do it early and often and not let their foot off of the gas pedal. Brett Beatty playing second base, batting 6th, batting 7th is Mark Vientos playing third base. Francisco Alvarez is catching, batting 8th, and Tyrone Taylor rounding things out, playing center field right there amidst all the conversations surrounding this trade deadline and the center field position. Thoughts on the lineup, Zach? Thoughts on Marte, Beatty, Vientos in that 5, 6, 7? What do you like about the lineup? Do you dislike anything about the lineup, or are you just worried about the overall production and trying to replicate what they did last night?
First and foremost, I find it interesting that you have Vientos in at third base in this matchup here. Given the defensive restrictions, the inability he has to perform at a high level, fielding the ball at third base, and Brett Beatty getting a start again against the lefty. So that's good to see. It seems like he is now an everyday bat in the lineup, an everyday fielder, regardless of the matchup. He's going to play against your righties and lefties. And I'm a little bit surprised to not see someone like Jeff McNeil in the lineup tonight. You want to give Marte some reps, and that might be indicative of the Mets probably not moving on from him, given the report, I guess, by Puma earlier today or yesterday when he said that teams are checking in on Starling Marte. But I do find it interesting that we do not have Jeff McNeil in this lineup. He has hit lefties well this season. I think he actually has reverse splits. He's hitting them better than righties in a smaller sample size. But good lineup overall. I think the only weak spot I really see is potentially Vientos, more so his glove than his offense, and then Tyrone Taylor in center field. But against a team that does not put too much offense on, provide too much offensively, you do want to have lockdown defense wherever you can, and that you get that with Tyrone Taylor in center field. So good lineup, and good to see Beatty still in that 6 hole. He has not moved from that in the last, I guess, week or so. And, no matter the matchup. So he is gaining the confidence of Mendoza and co with his offensive production and his ability to field the ball well, whether it's at third base or second base. So I think any trade talks of someone like Eugenio Suarez have all been squashed at this point. I mean, obviously things can change, but given what Beatty has done, I think he will be a mainstay either at third or second, with maybe Mauricio or Vientos slotting in here and there. So we'll see how they perform tonight. You'd like to see them get off to another hot start against former Cy Young winner Robbie Ray. Just give Peterson some breathing room. He's someone that, regardless of whether he's had the breathing room or not, he's performed basically week in and week out. Every 5th day, he seems to go up there and produce for this Mets team. And I hope tonight's no different for him. This is a bigger field, so you want to definitely have, like I said, the defense behind him. He's a contact pitcher. But one thing of note is the Giants are actually one of the worst performing teams against left-hand pitchers of late. So I expect a good night from David Peterson. And maybe that's why this Giants lineup has not been posted yet. They're probably trying to find the best matchups to do some damage against David Peterson, pitching to some form of a Cy Young caliber season this year. He might not be in the top 10, but he will be getting some votes if he continues to perform like this.
As long as you don't give us another betting prediction
No,
for
no more,
David
no more.
Peterson or this pitching staff, I think we should be in good shape, especially with how Sean Manaea ended his start last go around
Painful.
with 1 strikeout shy of the over/under. But listen, appreciate everyone being here during this pregame. Make sure to smash the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, all that fun stuff, and keep dropping your thoughts in the live chat. What do you think about this game? What do you think about the lineup, and what do you think about the overall pitching matchup? Because Robbie Ray is a guy that is having a really good season, and it's a bounce back season because I guess he missed most of 2023 and 2024. I haven't really been keeping up with him since a couple of years ago prior to that, but 123 innings under his belt with the Giants this year, 2.92 ERA. He's a 4-pitch mix pitcher, and he features a four-seam fastball and a slider as his top two in the usage rate at 50 and 22% respectively, and opposing hitters are hitting and batting under 200 off of those two respective pitches. He does have a changeup and a knuckle curve that he also throws for, I guess, a respectable amount of times in terms of the usage distribution, but primarily the four seam slider combination is what he rolls with. So it's going to be a pretty, I would maybe not anticipate it being too much of a challenging time for this lineup, but this is a legitimate pitcher on the opposite end of the mound, and they need to be prepared for what he has to offer. What I will say is that you are absolutely correct about the dimensions of this ballpark, and we didn't mention this yesterday, but this is a very big ballpark in terms of the outfield ground needed to cover. And I think that's why you definitely see Tyrone Taylor in center field. I also do agree with you. If the Mets are going off the analytical splits and the matchups, you'd probably think that McNeil would be in this lineup, given that he has reverse splits and is more successful against lefties. But, maybe there is something to getting Starling Marte some more reps, especially before this trade deadline, in case anybody gives them a significant offer. Now, for the third time that we've said this probably today, I know since definitely yesterday, we don't expect Starling Marte to get traded from this team, even though that teams around the league, as per Mike Puma, are calling in on Starling Marte to see if he is available. What are you realistically going to get that is going to help out your roster rather than keeping this veteran clubhouse guy on your team? That's basically the decision that needs to be made surrounding Starling Marte. I just find it curious. I know lefty righty is the favorable matchup, but I think that I'd rather have Jeff McNeil's bat in there. Although Marte, all in all, this season, even though you're getting absolutely zero power from him, he has put up respectable games and he has looked at least competent at the plate when he is healthy and on the field. And it's always been about the health factor, ever since 2022 for Starling Marte, or I should say 2023, because he had a really good 2022 campaign. But as long as he's on the field, he is in on a team that we don't like platooning the DH spot. If they're going to do it, having Starling Marte is fine. He just takes up that roster spot that, kind of hinders the Mets getting better offensively, like we talked about in the stream earlier, but that's okay. I like this lineup. It should be able to produce runs, and David Peterson should, go out there and have a good time against the Giants, like you said. I did not know that they struggled against lefties, so hopefully David Peterson uses that to his advantage. And David Peterson is coming off of a very impressive outing against the Cincinnati Reds. Really needed to be a showstopper for that Mets, for this Mets team in that series, in which was a super winnable series, but they came out in the losing end, and David Peterson was the guy to stop that and help provide a win in that series, going 6 scoreless innings. And he really has been, outside of, I guess, a couple of outlier type of starts, especially that one in Pittsburgh that I had the displeasure of watching live. He has been having a very good season. I mean, he is picking up where he left off. He's an all-star for a reason, pitched that scoreless inning in the all-star game, and you just trust David Peterson more oftentimes than not on the mound this season, which is really good. The Mets needed that on this roster, especially with the uncertainty surrounding Minaya and Kodai Senga for quite some time and the injury status. Really good to see this production again from David Peterson. He will be part of this rotation moving forward. He still has, I think, another year left on his contract before he hits free agency. So the Mets are going to have to start again thinking about his future and what an extension looks like, etc. But he is performing in a major way, and he's really turned his career around. I'm very thoroughly impressed. And when we talk about a rotation, this is what I hear from Mets fans a lot, and I think that Rob has said this countless of times, is that, we're looking for rotation arms to get deeper into ball games more often than not. Right? And we keep on driving that point home when we talk about Clay Holmes and how he hasn't been able to do so. But the one rotation arm that has been able to do so is David Peterson, which is really good. So I don't know. I just went on like a 2-minute tirade giving all the praises in the world to David Peterson, but he definitely deserves them this year, Zach.
Yeah, you can't sing enough praises for David Peterson. He's been incredible, and he's been a rock for this rotation. That's been a merry-go-round of players coming up from AAA to make spot starts, bullpen games, and injuries, forcing guys in and out of the rotation. So he's been the one true consistent, I guess, along with Clay Holmes in this rotation. And you just hope he can give you another good performance tonight. And I truly believe he can. One thing I do want to say about Robbie Ray, he did have a rough start last week against the Blue Jays, and maybe something the Mets can pick up on with Robbie Ray and be able to hit him like the Toronto Blue Jays did. And then on top of that, he's a fly ball pitcher. He allows more fly balls than ground balls, and given this team's inabilities at times to put the ball in the air and the amount of double plays they do ground into, this could be something that the Mets try to take advantage of, and you hope they can, especially with this larger outfield, put some balls in the gaps and get some prolonged innings from him and get deeper and deeper into that bullpen after last night when they were able to get Logan Webb out of there in 4 innings. So if the Mets can do some damage to Robbie Ray early on, I feel very confident that David Peterson and the rest of the pitching staff can hold it down for the Mets. I don't expect as many runs as last night. That's a bit of an unexpected, surprise by the Mets lineup to tag Logan Webb for as many runs as they did. Robbie Ray is also a very good pitcher, like we said, and I don't expect him to get shelled as much as Logan Webb did last night. But if you can make him throw a lot of pitches and take advantage of those pitches that you do get when you get some good ones left over the middle of the plate, this team can go ahead or get ahead early and hopefully stay ahead the whole game.
As we suspected earlier on in this stream, Anthony DeComo saying new reliever Gregory Soto won't be active. He will not be active tonight. He just got to San Francisco earlier this afternoon, so he should officially join the team Sunday in uniform tomorrow in the final game of this series being available. So again, we were speculating whether it's going to be today or tomorrow. I don't think it really matters in the grand scheme of things as long as he is going to be available in this series at some point. So that is the good news. Everything was smooth in that trade, and Gregory Soto again officially is a New York Met being available tomorrow. Yeah, listen, I mean, going back, I hate to deviate away from this actual game, but going back to the Rumble Ponies, I mean, they have a game in 25 minutes and we don't have a lineup.
Still
I
no
don't see a
lineup.
lineup. I don't see
I
a
did
lineup. They have
ask someone, John Hyland, who seems to be pretty tuned in with this. He said they are usually slow to put it out, but 20 minutes before game time is incredibly slow, especially given that the other team has put out their lineup and there's no inclement weather in the forecast to maybe delay such a a reasoning to delay this lineup being put out and potentially delaying the game. So again, this is maybe wishful thinking on our part, but given the time of the year, trades do manifest fairly quickly. So if the Mets are in conversation with another team regarding one of their AA prospects, it could be something where they don't want to show their hand too early and have someone go in and then just be ripped out of the lineup with a prospective trade. So I guess we'll see. I don't know when we might hear some news, but hopefully we will hear something on that front with the lineup sooner rather than later.
Well, we are refreshing as this stream is going on, and I'm sure that people at home are also doing the same thing. 'Tis the season for lineup watching in the minor league affiliate teams and on their X accounts. So we will keep you posted if we hear anything about that within the hour. Not sure how long we're going to go on this stream, but glad you all can join us ahead of game 2. And if I am looking down right now, I do apologize because I do have my phone right here and I'm just constantly refreshing my feed. No thanks to the Yankees, though, as Darren is saying in the live chat. Thanks a lot, Yankees, for nothing, losing 9-4 against the Phillies, and therefore an even deadlock in this division until we get the final score of tonight's game with the Mets and the Giants. Listen, I expect this, NL East to just be a bloodbath between these two teams. Like, it's going to be back and forth. One team is going to leapfrog the other and vice versa. And it's just going to keep going that way until someone can find some separation. And the Phillies' time for separation already passed. They had their time to potentially separate when the Mets were going through an abysmal stretch of games, and they failed to do so. And so now, with the trade deadline season upon us, with Senga, Manaea back, adding a guy like Gregory Soto, the time is now for the Mets to try to gain some ground on Philly. And I think that Philly also has They have the Tigers, who are also struggling. So they're playing
White
these
Sox,
teams at
nice.
the right at the right time. Unfortunately, I think the Tigers lost like 10 of their last 11 games, something like that. Oh, in what I saw yesterday, which is
Yeah,
absolutely ridiculous.
they have the White Sox before the Tigers, but yeah, they've lost 10 of 11, and I think they might be on their way to losing 11 of 12 today. I think did they start yet? They did. They're against the Blue Jays, and it is 0-0 at the end of the first. But the Tigers have been struggling, and yeah, the Phillies are going to be facing two teams at the right time in the Yankees that while they're struggling and with a massive injury blow to those New York Yankees across town. And they have the Detroit Tigers after the deadline and the White Sox leading up to the deadline next. So the Phillies are in a good position to win some games and gain some ground on us if we cannot hold them off with some wins against this Giants and Padres team leading up to the deadline, and then Giants again after the deadline. So you just hope you can do your job and win some series to basically just do your part in holding them off. If the Phillies go out there and sweep some series, there's nothing you can do about that. All you can do is worry about what your team does and what you do yourself. And if we're winning series, we're doing the right thing. You can't expect a sweep every series, but it was nice to get that sweep against the Angels to keep this pace with the Phillies and hold them off just a little bit by a sliver of that half game.
Yeah, and I think the Yankees did actually get some good news. I mean, as good of news as they wanted to
Good.
hear, give quote unquote good news about, the imaging of Aaron Judge. It's not a UCL injury. The UCL is intact, so no need for Tommy John. I forgot exactly what the injury is classified as. I know Passon was tweeting about it, but he is probably going to be hitting the
Flexor
IL, which
tendon.
is the yeah, that's right. Flexor tendonitis, is it? Or let me go to
Flexor
Passon.
tendon strain.
What
And
is it?
flexor tendon strain. So it's actually the injury that Max Kranick dealt with before he was finally diagnosed with UCL tear and needing Tommy John surgery. So a bit of a blunder, a bit of a really big mistake on the Yankees' part, given the fact that he was showing some injury concern in the Blue Jays series, grabbing at that arm and showing some discomfort when throwing baseballs. And yeah, just a terrible, terrible thing for the Yankees. I mean, we're happy that the Yankees are stumbling. We do not wish ill will on any player injury or anything else of that regard. So it's tough to see that for Judge. But this is a mistake by the Yankees not trying to figure that out sooner. This is the second player they've actually essentially gotten hurt by letting them go and play while injured. Clark Schmidt was dealing with some forearm tightness or some forearm problems before he did eventually get diagnosed with the torn UCL and needing Tommy John surgery. So not good. Not good for the Yankees. And they are only 8 games above 500, if I'm not mistaken now. So this is a Yankees team in a free fall that are kind of clinging to a sliver of a lead in the wild card. And given the injury to Judge, it could be something that you see them fall out of a wild card position within the next week or so.
Yeah, it's been a really rough time. As much as we were talking about, a really bad stretch for the Mets, it's been arguably even worse for the Yankees, and their defensive woes continue. I mean, they are playing abysmal defense, and I guess that was the vision with them going out there and getting a third baseman in Ryan McMahon. That team just needs some new fundamentals, a new fundamental approach in the infield, especially because it's just brutal. But not to make this all about the Yankees, they also stated that they are not going to call up Spencer Jones. I know he's been dealing with back tightness, but his first 19 games in AAA, he's got over a 1,400 OPS, which is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So
It
I
is.
don't know what they're going to do to fill the void of Aaron Judge. But that's quite frankly not our worry at this point, as we do have a game. The Giants also don't have a lineup posted, so that's kind of annoying me.
Still
I
not.
know that we're doing the stream early, I get it, but the Mets have their lineup out. I wish that we were able to see what the Giants are going to be throwing up there to
I would
face David.
expect something similar to what we got last night. Let's see. I'm going to scroll through there. I mean, who was it last night? Ramos, Devers, Adames, Chapman, Yastrzemski, Flores, Lee, Schmidt, and Bailey. Maybe you see someone like Yastrzemski out of the lineup or dropped further down. Same with Jung-Ho Lee, given they are lefties. So I expect a very similar lineup, maybe some minor changes due to the lefty on the mound for the Mets. But That is not a strong lineup they have there. It really isn't, especially after the addition of Rafael Devers not producing like you would want him to. This is a team you can take advantage of. They got off to a really hot start due to their pitching, and they have not been able to keep pace, with what they once started. So as our Mets team is holding on to a small lead and trying to gain some room on the Philadelphia Phillies, you need to take advantage of teams when they are not playing well. And the San Francisco Giants are doing just that, not playing well as the San Diego Padres. So these are two teams that are beatable for the Mets, even given this being a West Coast trip, which the Mets are notoriously had trouble with in the past. But this is the time to strike. We can't sit here and beg and plead for series sweeps. But if you can escape this West Coast 4-2, I think every Mets fan would be pleasantly pleased, given the fact that these are two good teams, even though they are playing bad, and you will still be in a good position in the NL East and probably up a bit in the wild card. So just go out there and do the job tonight.
You know who is another team that's been struggling in the NL
Yeah,
landscape has been the Chicago Cubs. They
they
are on a
have been.
little slide, and they lost 4 of their last 5, and they
Same with the
relinquished their
Cardinals.
division lead to the Brewers, who are just notoriously in contention at all times. They're still only 1 game out of the Brewers, but the Brewers just always find a way to make things happen. I'm not sure how. I'm not sure, why they don't reinvest and, keep on investing in their team
Mm-hmm.
to try to push themselves into a serious championship contender instead of this playoff contender consistently that is not going to get over the hump, because that's exactly what their organization has definitely been. It comes from cheap ownership, but the fact that they are always able to put together such a respectable roster, even losing just so many key pieces, notably Willie Adames this past offseason, is pretty impressive. They've got a good structure that was set in place by David Stearns over there. So really good stuff to see from their perspective. But what I will say is appreciate everyone being part of this live chat. We're 28 minutes in. Salute to the chat. We got Froza, Darren, Marcus, Stanley, Dolo. Appreciate everyone. Oliver, Daniel, Elvin, all of you all. It's awesome to see. Keep the live chat comments coming. If you missed the live stream that we did and just talking strictly MLB trade deadline, we might want to transition into a little bit of deadline talk here before we end the stream if we really want to. But, between the stream that we did a couple hours ago, second stream of the day that you see Zach and I on the same screen, there's a lot of names that we talked about. And nothing has really changed since then. I mean, of course, we're always just refreshing our feed here and trying to find some more news to talk about. But, it's just going to be, I think, starting tomorrow, maybe not tonight, but definitely starting tomorrow, probably a plethora of matinee games. Once those conclude, I think that Sunday night you could realistically be talking about things really starting to get active. So, which is unfortunate because I'll be on vacation starting tomorrow, like I said in the previous stream. So I would have hoped to be doing a live stream tomorrow night, but I'm not going to be able to do so, unfortunately. But I think tomorrow is really the point where you're going to start to see a flurry of moves. I'm not talking about blockbuster trades. I'm just talking about the moves that get the market going and kind of set the precedent of, what values should be established for certain players and certain tiers of players. Because that's really when we talk about the trade deadline every single year, you have certain tiers of players. Like we talked about Gregory Soto. I wouldn't classify him as one of the top bullpen targets this deadline. I would classify him, especially being a lefty, a little bit more value there. But in the overall landscape, he's like a mid-tier kind of get for this Mets team, especially if he can figure out the walks. Then maybe he can kind of blossom into a really nice surprise. But those walks are going to be something that we're always watching out for. So that's kind of how I see this trade deadline playing out. And then you won't start to see, the bigger moves like Eugenio Suarez maybe into early next week is how I would envision things playing out. But maybe a team just wants to go ahead and get it out the way and have these respective players join the squad earlier rather than later, and that's a consideration too. And stranger things have happened in that regard. So, Froza's saying here, I'm refreshing like a maniac right now. Yeah, I mean, I know that you just hopped into the stream here. We were talking about it earlier in this pregame stream. We're watching the AA affiliate Rumble Ponies and their account. They have a game in literally, unless they're just not posting a lineup today and the admin just forgot, there's no lineup 12 minutes before their scheduled first pitch that I'm seeing, unless you see something different, Zach.
No, I don't see anything different, but I do want to mention one thing with the Mets. Interesting, maybe some again wishful thinking on my part, but the Mets did have a few games against lefties previously, on that homestand against the Reds and the Angels, and if I'm not mistaken, Luis Angel Acuna did start in most of them, if not all of them. So interesting to not see him out there tonight against the lefty. He did not. He started all but one of them against lefties. So interesting to see, Luis Angel Acuna out of the lineup, Binghamton Rumble Ponies lineup not posted. Could there be something brewing? We don't know. I would definitely stay tuned to X and have your guys DeComo, Martino, Puma all pulled up and refreshing them frequently to see what happens.
I was on mute. You know what I despise?
What?
When these MLB insiders post their article that's paywalled, like Rosenthal and Heyman and all of them. Like, I'm not gonna pay. With all due respect, I'm not paying for the Athletic. I'm
Nah.
not paying for the New York Times. Like,
Got a
no,
little
thank you.
hack for you. Got a little hack for you. If you do it on your phone, you can't really time it with the New York Times. But with the Athletic articles, if you do click the reader quick enough at the top right of the of your phone screen, you can actually read the article without paying for it.
Do you need to like screenshot it, or is it just
No. You just press show reader and it pulls it up and it bypasses needing a login for the subscription. So you can't really do it with the New York Times, but you can with the Athletic articles and a few of the other paid for news articles. So
I just did it with the Athletic article. Awesome. Well, there you go.
Right.
I appreciate that information. There you go. The more you know. I don't know if they're aware of that, but let's just keep that,
Yeah, don't go telling
away
Will
from.
Salmon or anyone like that.
Yeah, don't go telling Will Salmon or anybody that's employed by the Athletic and posting some stuff there. We want to keep this to ourselves. Let's see here what Ken Rosenthal is saying per his latest article. Let's see.
I think he did bring up something about what's his name, Eugenio Suarez and the Phillies.
Yeah.
So that is something to keep notice of. And this is going to be an interesting deadline. I don't see anything big. Yet, but hopefully the Mets.
This is a good thing to keep an eye out on. In the stream that we did with Rob a couple of days ago, I brought up the Tampa Bay Rays, and I brought up a certain name that I've always been interested in Yandy Diaz. Per this article by Ken Rosenthal, the Tampa Bay Rays position on trading certain players and specifically first baseman Yandy Diaz also might be softening. So they could be, and he's got another 2 years. I think there's a mutual option on, or maybe a club option on the last year of his deal, but I think it's 2 more years after 2025. The Rays have been reluctant to trade Yandy Diaz, who sacrificed perhaps greater money elsewhere by signing 2 club-friendly extensions. If they indeed become willing to move him, the Red Sox will almost certainly be at the top of the list of the teams interested. How feasible is that an in-division trade there in the AL East? I don't know, but I would love to have Yandy Diaz as a DH moving forward.
That would be incredible. We do have a little bit of an update with the Binghamton Rumble Ponies. They do have a lineup on their website. No big names out. So there's that.
Right,
unless I guess Christopher. No big names out. So there goes. That squashes that. They didn't announce the lineup on Instagram or on Twitter, but they did. The game is in its warm up with.
You know what?
All the usual
Let's
suspects.
do something real quick. Let's do something real quick to fill the time here, because we got another maybe 10 minutes on the stream. I want to see something here. See if I can do this real quick. So we do have a lineup from the Rumble Ponies, is what you're saying.
We do have a lineup from the Rumble Ponies, sadly.
You were waiting for a little bit of a hug watch there.
I was actually, you know what? Nick Morabito is injured. I'm mistaken. So that's my bad.
Okay, let's do this. I'm going to toss
Yeah.
one of my tweets up that I posted before on the screen, and I want to get everyone's thoughts and opinions, including yours, Zach, on this. And I think that I already know what your answer is going to be, but I'm curious about it nonetheless. Because in the live stream earlier that we did today, as I put this together for your guys' viewing, we started off by talking a little bit about prospects, primarily Drew Gilbert, but we didn't really get into the overall landscape of the Mets prospects. And I think that it is important to do so when setting expectations because, to each their own, everyone's going to have a little bit of a different opinion on, who should be going, who should be available, who shouldn't be available. And so I decided to make my own little list of who I think is quote unquote untouchable. I'm curious if you all would agree with that. So let's have a little bit of fun on this stream, on this pregame stream, and let's do that. Because you know what, if we're talking about trades, clearly the Mets have, and every organization has, their untouchables and who they would have to just get blown out of the water for. And if they don't, they're not going to trade. So let's just start off by talking about that, because whether you agree with prospect hugging to a certain extent or not, David Stearns has already told you that there are certain prospects that he is not really looking to trade. And therefore, curious if we have the same list here. Let's do that. This is what I said. This is my list. This is my list. I know exactly what someone's going to say. Zach, you're probably going to say it immediately when something pops, something that's missing. A name that's missing here is probably the first thing that you think of, right? He happens to be the Mets' #1 overall prospect. Yeah. So these are my ranking of Mets untouchable prospects, quote unquote untouchable. Jonah Tong, Noel McLean, Carson Bench, Elian Pena. I mean, with the contract that he got, the signing bonus, they're not getting rid of him. And he has been, after an 0-for-26 start to his professional career in the Mets organization, Elian Pena is on a tear right now. Honorable mention Brandon Sproat. So of the three names, Jonah Tong, McLean, and Sproat, I'd probably be, in my personal opinion, be the most likely to say that Brandon Sproat is the most likely to go. What do you think about this list? I mean, okay, you're going to say Jet Williams is missing, right?
Yeah,
He's untouchable. Okay. That's what I figured.
Yeah, Jet Williams is untouchable, and given the state of the Mets center field and really just up the middle in general, between second base and center field, you kind of need someone like Jet Williams to fill the void that Tyrone Taylor will be leaving. I don't know, is he a free agent or is he does he have arbitration left?
No, I think Tyrone Taylor has another year, if I'm not mistaken. Let's see his contract per Spotrac, because I know he had controllability when the Mets traded for him. He's got one more arbitration year in 2026 before he's a free agent.
Okay, so then we do have Tyrone Taylor still available, but Jeff McNeil will be a free agent after next season, not this season. So you do need people there to man second base and potentially center field. And I'm assuming if Jet Williams is ready and he is not traded at this deadline, he will be there to replace one of the two. I think also someone I would include in the untouchable portion is AJ Ewing, and I think untouchable is such a is just kind of it's a term that's you can't really take verbatim, because I think in the right trade, no one is untouchable. Like, if obviously going very extreme, Paul Skeens is out there, you're trading everyone and anyone to get Paul Skeens. I think Joe Ryan is someone the Mets would dump a lot of those guys in that top 4 or 5 for. So I think there are players that can make untouchables available. Now, what I will say is there are players that the Mets should definitely be looking to hold on to come hell or high water if they are not getting a good return in place for them. A good enough player to be a factor and be a true provider for this team for a few years, if not more than going forward. So I do agree with this list for the most part. Elian Pena, yes, definitely. Brandon Sproat, I think, is on the cusp. I think Jet Williams definitely slots into that top 5. And AJ Ewing for myself would make this list, like with Brandon Sproat, in that honorable mention category, where he's not getting traded unless there is a good enough deal in place. And I think Ryan Clifford can kind of slot his way in there too, just because of the uncertainty with Pete Alonso re-signing after this season. So there's a few players that the Mets are probably reluctant to trade, but would in the right deal. And then like this top four you have here, and I would also include Jet Williams in it, would be my untouchables.
And I think that just speaks to the strength of this Mets farm system that they have plenty, and I've said this before, they have plenty of depth that is still respectable, like in the top 10, especially maybe the top 15 to get deals done of
Mhm.
a proper caliber this trade deadline. And we'll get into some of the comments here in the live chat in just a second, but they have enough to designate a couple of these prospects, like maybe 5 of them, if you include Jet Williams per what you just said, and still have enough in the back end outside of these names to get things done. You know what I mean?
No.
Um, and that's just the fact of the matter. So I figured that I'd bring that up because in conjunction with the new prospect list coming out per the MLB pipeline, I honestly didn't even know that they were going to come out. I knew that they're going to come out their midseason rankings at some point, but I didn't know what day was going to be. So it was a big shakeup. It was a big shakeup, but there's a lot of not only pitching, but hitting talent that is not, your Carson Benjes or your Drew Gilberts that have been rising through the ranks and, you know, are really making a name for themselves in this organization and probably around the league as well, with certain teams now scouting other farm systems like the Diamondbacks were doing to the Mets AA affiliate in Binghamton. So this is an interesting comment that I wanted to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see here.
The
Oh,
Darren's.
yep, Darren. Do you think McLean or Sproat will start, reliever, or piggyback off of Clay Holmes if Holmes is going to be in the starting rotation for the long term in the second half? I know that Stearns used Burns, Peralta, Freddie Peralta, and Brandon Woodruff as relievers before making them starters in Milwaukee. What do you think about this comment?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. I think one or two of them will be up as relievers if the Mets aren't able to improve that group of pitchers, starters and relievers, to a drastic degree where they don't really have to worry about them. And I think you always have to be worried about injuries in your starting rotation and bullpen, where these guys are knocking on the door, and they surely will become available to come up and pitch either in the pen or in the rotation if that was to become true. Because I think at this point, where you were worried about them making spot starts and not sticking long term because of guys coming back from injury. If there's a big enough injury to the rotation or the bullpen post trade deadline, and you need to fill that spot, you're not calling up someone like a Brandon Woodruff, who I actually think was DFA, but Justin Hageman as well, to fill that void, because now you're in a position where you might not be able to get that player back for the rest of the season, and then you need to stick with them long term, one of these guys long term, and you would certainly rather that be Nolan McLean or Brandon Sproat.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into that answer kind of goes into what Josh is saying here. If the Mets are going to stick to priority of the bullpen and hopefully a center fielder, they need to acquire a seriously high leverage reliever. And we talked about this when we were on the stream yesterday, talking about Gregory Soto when the news broke, or I should say maybe 45 minutes after the news broke, is that this Soto signing was their mid-level reliever get. I think that we both think that the Mets and David Stearns have a lot bigger of a name in store for the bullpen from the right-handed side. And David Stearns has been very adamant that the bullpen will be a priority, like Josh is saying right here. So I do think that the Mets are shopping on the higher end, that top tier of relievers in the trade market. Now, I guess that you can have multiple tiers of top tier relievers, right? Because it depends on who's available versus who isn't. Clase, Durant, Helsley. Helsley's definitely available, but those guys, David Bednar, or we can talk about the righties like Anthony Bender, who are having a little bit more of career years, but you don't think of as a showstopper, kind of closer / dual setup guys. So the definitions are a little bit different to everybody, but I definitely understand where this comment is coming from. And I agree with this, is that prioritizing the bullpen. And if they want to do that, they just need to go big with the bullpen if they don't plan on signing a very impactful starting pitcher, as we were talking about the options earlier on the live stream, Zach.
Yeah, I don't know what's going to be out there in terms of starting pitching. I mean, we know who is out there, but what it will be out there available for the Mets. And I think given the guys with more contract with longer term contracts as opposed to the rentals, they are going to cost probably one of your top 5 to 10 prospects at just to headline the trade amongst others. So it might be a bit difficult for Stearns to swing a deal that he's comfortable with, whereas with the rental pieces in the starting pitching front, he might be able to get away with offering someone of a lower class, maybe not necessarily a lower class player, but lower class prospect in terms of their ranking. Because I think this is what you need to realize with the prospects is the rankings are subjective. You know, you go from Pipeline to Baseball Reference or Baseball America, Baseball Prospectus, Bleacher Report, what have you. There is going to be some sort of variance in where they have these guys ranked. People prioritize different skill sets over others, so it's not the gospel. But you know, given that with all of them together, you can kind of gauge what everyone is basically thought of as. And I think Stearns is going to be reluctant to trade one of those top guys. So it'll be interesting to see. I think, yeah, I agree. I also agree with Josh. They need to get someone. I don't know. I think they either need to get someone of high leverage if they're not going to go for a starter. But if they're going to go for a starter, I'm okay with someone of the lower tiers, like you brought up Anthony Bender. I brought up earlier Brock Stewart. Guys of that class would fit the bill because then you could rely a little bit heavier on that starting rotation to toast some of the burden of pitching longer into games as opposed to going to the bullpen earlier and needing to lean on them.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And then I guess the final point here in terms of the actual trade deadline of it all is that per the same article from Ken Rosenthal, not only Yandy Diaz was his name was mentioned, but Brandon Lowe as well, who is, I guess, a lefty option. I believe he bats from the left side. He's got 19 home runs, batting 269 and an 800 OPS. He has a club option associated with his name next season, and he's an unrestricted free agent in 2027. So, you know, 1 year less of controllability than Yandy Diaz, but, you know, a very competent hitter. And, you know, with the uncertainty surrounding Jesse Winker, I mean, maybe they are looking for a lefty as a DH
Mhm.
option. I don't think that Brandon Lowe with 19 home runs is meant to be a platoon option at DH, but maybe they do bring in a bat like that. And it's always tough trading with the Rays because you know they're going to get the value back of you know whoever they're getting back in return. But you know those are two pretty big bats that could find themselves available on this market if the Tampa Bay Rays keep losing. But they don't have that much more time to assess, you know. That's why I think that those names are going to be available no matter what, because the Rays have shown the willingness and not thinking twice about what they're doing at the deadline and being sellers, even having a respectable season. You know, I find it hard to believe that they're still contemplating whether they should be buyers or sellers regarding those two names. So I do think that the Rays will be open for business if I had to guess, but some really big bats from that front in the AL East that could be on the move at the trade deadline. And
I
I don't like
wonder. I was gonna say, I wonder
the
what someone like Peter Fairbanks would cost. Is he
yeah,
under
he's
contract past this season? He did sign
Petey
a 3 year
Fairbanks.
contract. He's as a club option next year. So Pete Fairbanks would be someone that could be a high leverage reliever for the Mets if they were to trade
Yep.
for him if he is made available and would be under contract for next year. So yeah, the Rays are always an enigma. They compete, they sell, they play terrible, they sell, but it always seems like regardless when they sell, 90% of the time they're winning those trades. So I would be a bit reluctant to trade with them, but I do trust Stearns more so than any other executive that we've had in the past. Even though the trade for Tyler Zuber did not work out, the one for Brooks Raley a few years ago did end up working out for us. You know, surprisingly and thankfully. But it'll be interesting to see what they end up doing in this next 5 days.
Yeah, this is an interesting comment by Darren. I don't think, let me look at the splits for Yandy Diaz this season. I think that he's been their solidified first baseman pretty much the whole year. 12 games as at first and 86 as a DH. So he does that, but he does have extensive history at third base as well, as Darren is pointing out. You know, I know he hasn't hasn't played there this season, but do you? I mean, we were talking about third baseman and being out on a third baseman at the deadline with Brett Beatty's play, on the rise. Do you think the Mets would even take a chance at, Yandy Diaz as a third baseman, or probably not? Because I'm saying
No,
probably
no,
not. But
no
it's a good
shot,
thought.
no shot in the hell. I don't think that would happen. But that is wishful thinking. That is interesting. I didn't even know Yanni Diaz could play third base, but I think he would
Mhm.
be a DH slash Pete Alonso replacement. That would be the reasoning behind trading for someone like him. And I don't know if you mentioned earlier when you brought up Ken Rosenthal's article about I know you brought up the Rays, but did you bring up the Diamondbacks and how they said they are almost certain that they're going to be trading Eugenio Suarez?
No, I did not. I did not bring that up. And they
Yeah,
also said
so
that both
yeah,
Kelly and Gallen could be gone, right?
yeah, that they're both going to be one could both be traded, but the preference is to keep one. So that is a bit interesting to see. Both are on expiring deals. If I had to guess, they will be trading Zach Gallen and Merrill Kelly will be staying in Arizona, given he is an Arizona boy. He's been there for a while. I think he's born in Arizona. I think he played college there in Arizona. So that seems like someone that might not be traded unless they're blown away.
Yeah.
He was born in Texas, but he went to college out there. So
Well, who do you think they would get more value from, Gallen or Kelly?
Kelly,
I mean, you think
def-
Kelly?
definitely the Kellys, yeah, and Kelly, and he was started his career with the Diamondbacks. So he drafted by the Rays, but started his career with the
Yeah, I was thinking
Diamondbacks.
about the upside factor of Gallen and what he once was and them being able to stick to that. But I do think with the current statistics and the discrepancy of what both of those guys are posting out there in Arizona so far this season, I mean, yeah, I think clearly that Kelly will have the higher yield return. But do the Diamondbacks do right by Kelly and keep him around where he's from, like you just mentioned? That also plays a part into it. But it's a business at the end of the day. The Diamondbacks are, I mean, that has been the one team that has been fringe sellers, that are still kind of in the playoff mix that have just come out and said, yeah, we're going to sell and we're not thinking twice about it. We're still waiting to hear confirmation from the Twins. We're still waiting to hear confirmation from the Guardians to what extent. And now we're slowly starting to hear news about the Rays being that potential seller, which just aligns with what Puma was saying earlier yesterday, and that as we approach Sunday and Sunday night, the teams around the league and us fans are going to have a clear picture of who's where and what team is taking which stance.
Yeah, what would you give up for Yandy Diaz if they were to bring him in as a DH?
I'd have to look at I mean, what do they want? I mean, let's look at their prospects real quick. Rays
Let's
top
pull up
prospects.
let me pull up the Jeff Passan article as well, real quick. Where did I?
I mean, I feel like that's a team that will always take pitching no matter how many position player or no matter how many pitching, how much pitching they have in their farm system. I think that
Biggest
they
need catcher and relief pitchers. So that's interesting. I wonder if you could swing for a deal centered around Christopher Suero, maybe a Blade Tidwell as well. I don't know.
uh I mean, what do you think? I mean, it's gonna take at least one top 10 for Yandy Diaz, especially with the
Yeah,
controllability.
that would be probably Christopher Suero, who's knocking on the door of the top 10. I think a few reports have him just outside of it, like between 10 and 15. I think Pipeline has him at the back end of the top 15, or back end of the top 20, if I'm not mistaken.
He's 20
Yeah,
exactly.
he's 20 on Pipeline. I think Mesmerize has him at 12. I think America has him somewhere in there. So it would be interesting. I think you'd probably look at a trade starting with Blade Tidwell, Chris Suero. Maybe instead of Suero, you go Davison Gutierrez, who's a bit younger, a bit further away. But I think that's a team that's always taking the best player available, regardless of how far they are away. Doesn't matter; they're getting the best talent they can. I wonder about someone like Anthony Nunez pitching in Double A, who's kind of looking like a reliever long term. Maybe that's someone they go for. Will Watson type. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know what they want, to be
What do
honest.
you don't think that they could use a first baseman to try to replace that? I mean, I guess they have a first baseman as their number 4 prospect, so never mind. I guess that's out of the window. He's 21, Xavier Isaac, so I guess. So their top five is shortstop, outfield, right-handed pitcher, first base, and outfield. So I mean, it's always just tricky. Yeah, they always will want that controllable hybrid starter slash reliever. You know, a guy that would have been easily in play for, in a trade for if the Mets were dealing with the Rays was who the Mets sent over to Baltimore, Arcena. Like that would fit the perfect mold of what they would want, according to what you just said.
Who was that? I'm sorry.
Wellington Arcena. That's like that would be a perfect fit for the Rays if
Oh
they're
yeah,
looking
100%.
for a controllable reliever that is, has a lot of high upside. So,
But
that
obviously he's in Baltimore.
yeah, he's in Baltimore now. He returned as Gregory Soto, so hopefully that in hindsight isn't going to hinder any Mets Rays deal if it is on the table, but we don't know if it's on the table just yet. That's gonna do it for the pregame show, though. I think we got a solid hour in, almost an hour. Again, no lineup posted yet for the Giants, but we do have the lineup in this game that is featuring two southpaw
Oh, we got a lineup.
pitchers. Oh, we got a lineup from the Giants. All right,
We
let's
got a
say it real
lineup.
quick.
So we got Ramos batting first in left field. Devers batting second at first base. Willie Adames playing shortstop, batting third. Chapman batting cleanup at third base. Wilmer Flores DHing at fifth. Schmidt playing second base, batting sixth. Jung Ho Lee batting seventh, playing center field. Matos in right field, batting eighth. And I don't know how to pronounce that name. Nizer catching at ninth. So I was correct in saying Yastrzemski would be out of the lineup. Jung Ho Lee does remain in the lineup.
Good call. You actually hit that on the nail on the head there. What has Devers been doing? I mean, he's been kind of
He's been terrible.
struggling. Yeah, he's been struggling, hasn't he?
He's been
Who do you
terrible.
fear most? Who do you fear most in this lineup?
Who do
Chapman?
I fear most in this lineup? I think it may be Wilmer Flores. I'm pretty sure he's having a very good year against lefties, and I think Willie Adames is also someone that crushes lefties. So those would be the two guys that I look at. Yeah, let's see. Wilmer Flores actually he's having a bad year against lefties, but career has been good against lefties, and then Willie Adames is someone I believe does crush lefties. So let's look that up real quick. Against lefties, he's having a bad year against lefties. I was incorrect. So, but those two guys probably. I don't know. This is a lineup that doesn't scare me in the slightest. So it's weird. It's a lineup I'm more afraid of being pesky and just finding holes and getting little dunkers to drop in more so than kind of beating you over the head with a stick and beating you that way. I think they're gonna be beat you by 1,000 cuts versus the one big swing. So yeah.
Let's do it. Let's get a series win.
Yeah, this is the lineup that David Peterson can dominate if he is on his game tonight. Let's win the series.
We will hope that he is, as the Mets are looking to take a series, the first series of this West Coast trip. That's going to do it for us on the first pregame of tonight, because like I mentioned, you will have another pregame stream with Rob's perspective of the state of the Mets, I'm sure, as well as this upcoming matchup between Robbie Ray and David Peterson. Just in about 45 minutes on his channel. Again, scheduling conflict, or else all three of us would have been on the screen together. So I definitely appreciate it. Again, smash those thumbs up buttons. Follow us on social media, usually live tweeting the games if we are able to watch them. Appreciate everyone that was in the live chat supporting, and I appreciate everyone subscribing. If you have any friends, any family that are Mets fans and they're looking to get into, some YouTube content to get the latest and greatest from this team, then you know where to point them to. Definitely appreciate it. Let's go Mets. It is another late start today, but not as late as yesterday. It's a 9 o'clock start. It'll be a late finish. No post game from me. But other than that, we'll see you all later, keeping you all updated on all the latest and greatest trade deadline news from your New York Mets. Zach, I appreciate it. Until next time, let's take a series. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.